Hilchis Mechirah Perek Shleisha V'Esrim. Now we learned that you can't be makna a dover shlei bol elam. So if a person wants to be makna the peiros that this field will produce or that this tree will produce, that's considered a dover shlei bol elam, and therefore the kinyan is not chal. However, that's only when he's being makna the peiros. He's speaking about the peiros. Masha'in Kanabi is being makna the field, and he's saying, I'm selling you the field, but what chus are you going to have in the field that the peiros that are going to grow from that field are going to be yours? So basically, I'm giving you the field. I'm being makna you the field. But I could be makna you the field that the field should be completely yours. And over here, you're limiting the hakna of the field, and you're saying the kinyan in the field is going to be that the peiros that this field will produce or that this tree will produce is yours. So then that's a perfectly regular kinyan. Because Lepil is making a kinyan in a dover sheyesh ne'ba'elam. That's the halacha. Peiros shleishav esrim. Makna adam haguf lipeiresav. A person can be makna something, a guf, and the gather of the kinyan is that you have the right to its peiros. And that could be bein b'mecher, bein b'matona, bein b'matan shchivmina. Before he said that eino the makna dover shalei b'ol elam. Bein b'mecher, bein b'matona, bein b'matan shchivmina. So here he's saying that when you're being makna the guf lipeiresav, then you could be makna sai b'mecher, sai b'matona, sai b'matan shchivmina. Ve'en ze makna dover shalei b'ol elam, shari haguf motzui. The guf is motzui, you could be makna the guf. Makna the peiros. And he's being makna the guf for the peiros that it will produce. Holamazadema, l'secher bayis esoda l'chaver. A person rents a house. What says he's renting the house? He's getting a kinyan in the house. And what's that kinyan in the house? Entitle him to live there while as a renter. And now there is he's renting a field. He's making a kinyan in the field. He's having a kinyan in the field. But what's the kinyan in the field going to accomplish? That he could go ahead and use the field. Shalihikni haguf, he wasn't makna the guf that the whole field is his. Ella hanos haguf, he was makna the field to have a certain hanoah from the field. So Aldero's over here, he could be makna the guf in order to have the peiros. Ketzad. Ken shemochar ishanosan soda, he went ahead and sold or gave a field, lip peirisa, that he should have a right to the peiros. Beiluz man kotzov, he made up for a certain amount of time, or bein kol yimei chayiv shel mecher, as long as the mecher is alive, or shel lekech, as long as the lekech is alive. So he has a right, he knows he's being koine of the field, and the kinyan is that the peiros that the field will produce is his. V'hu adin l'moichel l'neisen ilul peiros, he's selling a tree, and the tree, what kinyan do you have in the tree that the peiros that'll come from the tree is yours? Oy rachul, he's selling a sheep, and legizose, that the sharing should be his. A behema of a shivcha, he's selling an animal or a shivcha, and what's the kinyan going to be? Not the whole animal is his, it's only livlod he's saying, that the children, that the vladas that come from the behema or the shivcha should be the buyers. Or eved, who is buying an eved, but not that the eved is completely his, but it's only l'maisu yadav. Notice whatever the eved does, that should be his. But the batzim, the gufa eved is not his. Is bakel in all of these cases when he's selling a gufa dover, lip peires of lim maisu yadav. So all of these cases, memkore a matones of kaim, it's a proper kinyan, because he's not being makna dover shlei bol elam, he's makna dover shebo elam. Now mocher avdei leknas, the din is that when a share is negeach an eved, so you have to, there's a din of shleishim shel knas. So the owner of the eved receives the shleishim shel knas. The question is, could you own the eved, and the gather of the kinyan is that the shleishim shel knas should be yours? The whole gather of shleishim shel knas is that you give it to the owner. Is it possible that that's your ownership? Your ownership is in the fact that the shleishim shel knas is yours. So that's a suffix. Mocher avdei leknas. If a person sells the eved leknas, which means shem yugach v'yomus yeknas shel ikech. In other words, what does the buyer have? The buyer has a kinyan that in case a share is negechit and it dies, so the knas should belong to this buyer. Says there is a suffix because the shail is that, in other words, the whole gather of knas is to the buyer, but it's not the pshat is that you have a kinyan for the knas. The knas is to whoever owns it. Lefichach leikana. So be'emes, since there's a suffix whether or not it goes to the lekech, so it does not go to the lekech. However, v'im tafes haknas ein mitzir miyadeh. If lepel the lekech made a tfis on the knas, so then is ein mitzir miyadeh. Halacha dalet. Mocher ilon lozeh upereisiv leacher. So he made one sale and he said, I'm selling the elon to this person and the peiros to the other person. The question is the pshat is that he's selling the elon and he's also selling the Elon Lepiresav to someone else. Is that the Havanas Advarim? In other words, the Gufa Elon is selling to one person, but also the Gufa Elon Lepiresav is selling to another person. Or do we say no, he's actually selling the whole Elon to one person, and he's only selling the payers to the other person, which really the payers he can't sell, and Memela it belongs to the Balu Elon, to whoever owns the Elon. So the din is Machar Elon Lezel Peiresav La'acher Le Shir Mekema Peires. We don't assume that he, in other words, that when he sold the Elon to the first person, he left over the Elon Liperesa for the other person. We assume that he sold the Elon to the first person, and he's the whole Balu Elon, and he's only trying to sell the payers of the Elon to someone else. And that's really a kinyan which is not chal. So therefore the entire Elon plus the payers belongs to the first person. That's this din. Nachamol. Machar Elon lezeh uperesav liacher, and that was in one mice. One Maisa Kinyan. Obviously, if he sells the Elon first to one person, so it's not going to help the Peiris La'acher. It means in one Maisa Kinyan, he was Mocher Elon Lezel Peiris La'acher. And the question is, how do you interpret this Maisa Kinyan? So we say Lishir became a Peiris. We don't understand the Pshat in the Kinyan is that he was Shir, the Elon Leperesa for the Acher. And therefore, since we Lishir became a Peiris, is therefore Vein La'acher Klum, so the other one doesn't have anything. Because Lepel, he was makna the Elon to one, and he was trying to be makna the Peiris to the other, and that's not really a Maisakno at all. Aval and Mocher Elon, and Vishir Peiris La'atzmi, while he was selling the Elon to someone, it was made up in the Kinyan that the Peiris are going to be his. So here we say that since it's La'atzmi, so La'atzmi is Ba'ayin Yofer, Harishir Mekema Peiris. So knows that he wants to retain that he still owns the tree Lepeiresav. He still owns it, even though he's selling the tree, but he's still going to own the tree leperesav. Aval pishlei perish abelagabi atzmei ba'ayin yafa mishayim. So b'kitzur, the din is that even though you can't be makna a davar shalei b'leilam, and you can't be makna the perish elon, but you can be makna a elon leperesav. Halacha hamoicher gufa karka lizman kosov. Person sells a karka not indefinitely; he sells it for his man kosov. Is hareza mechira, that's considered a proper mechira. Whereas during that time, it's considered his. Umishtamesh alikir beguf kechefsei ve'oichel apeiris kol zman hamechira ubeseif tafzil bala. So before we learned that there's a din that you could be koina karka lipeiresiv. So it's like it's a mixus in the sense, not a mixus of time, but rather a mixus in the maisakinya. You don't own the peiris, the ilan mamish. You only own it lipeiresiv, and that could also be lizman kosov. Now we're saying you could own the soda mamish. But you're only owning it l'zman kosov. You can make a hagbola in zman in a full kinyan. Ma hefish yesh bin ameche karka l'zman kosov bin hamakna isel perisel. When a person is makna perisel, he's also being magbal the kinyan. And when a person is being makna l'zman kosov, he's also being magbal the kinyan. And befrat that makna isel perisel bepastus is also l'zman kosov. She says shakena leperis. Person that's kena leperis eina yochel l'shan l'sunas hakarka. He doesn't own the karka mamish to the sense where he could go ahead and change the tzuras hakarka. He can't build there. He can't break things there. It's not his. It's only his liperesav. The karka is only there. His only kinyan is liperesav. Masha'inkin, when a person aval akena lizman kotzev, when a person owns a karka or whatever lizman kotzev, who bein v'heres, at this point it's his. Just like a person that owns something kinyan leilam could do whatever he wants with the property that he owns. So a person that owns something lizman kotzev at this point in time, Yitaka doesn't own it forever. So memela, whatever will be there after this and this time will belong to the original owner. But lepel at this point in time it's completely his nachamah. When a person sells something, leperesov, so there's a hagbala in the kinyan. Whereas I own a taka, but I only own it leperesav. And it's also bepashas only for his man kotzev. Masha'enkin, when a person sells something his man kotzev, I own it completely. But I only own it completely his man kotzev. One that zman will be over, so then the kinyan will no longer be chal. So that's the difference between a meicher ilon leperesav as opposed to a meicher ilon lizman kotzev, or whatever lizman kotzev. Now, uma hefresh yesh bin a meicher soda zula perisel. Now over here, when it says, now we learned before that a mecher peiris soda zula chaveri is not koina. So you're going to have to learn. We'll see Behemshah that the Rambam is learning over here that you are Kena. Amecha Peiris Soda Zula Chaver is Kena. So it means that there's Peiris already on the field. In other words, the Peiris grew already, or started growing. I'll call upon them, it started growing. Because even though Lamashal we learned before, B'negei Uber, we mentioned it, by an Uber is considered a Davar Shlei B'Leila, but Peiris, when they started growing, so since they already started growing, so it's not considered a Davar Shlei B'Leila. So when a person sells Peiris or Ilan, and they already started growing, so Yitaka is koine the Peiris Ilan. So Maya Hefesh Yesh. Ben HaMecher Sod Zula Peiriseh, when a person sells a field of Peiris. Uben HaMecher Peiris Sod Zula Chaver, and he's actually selling in the Peiris, and the kinyan is Chal. ShaMecher Peiris HaSoda Ein Lo Lekeach Leishtamish B'Sod Zuklal. The Lekeach has no rights in the field at all. He only has a rights to the Peiris. Afilu Likonis, he can't even walk into the field. Ela B'Shas Yitzoes HaPeiris. So those Peiris, in other words, a person goes ahead, and let's say a person has Peiris. Peiris started growing on the field, and you sell that the Peiris of this field. That's one scenario. And then another scenario is you sell the field for its Peiris. So what's the difference? And let's say you do it only for 1 year. You're selling the Peiris of this year. These Peiris, there's only 1 year, Peiris once a year. So I'm saying I'm selling the Peiris of this field. And the Peiris started growing. That's one case. The other case is I'm selling this field Peiris for a year. So l'chura, basically, both of them, you're only getting the Peiris. And I'm saying, no, there's a difference. When a person sells Peiris of this field, all he gets is the Peiris. He has no kinyan at all in the field. Mainly, he can't walk into the field. He could only walk into the field to get the Peiris. Masha'enkin, if a person sells the field L'Peirisov, so mainly he has a right to the field. But he has a right to the field only to the extent that he can get the Peiris here. Halacha Zaino. Ma hefesh yesh ben hamecha soda zula Peiriseh. Uben hamecha Peiris soda zula chaver. And you have to talk about in a case where he's taka koine the Peiris because the Peiris started growing already. Shamecha Peiris hasoda in lekech lishtamish b'soda zuklal. He has no rights to the field. Afilu likonos, even to walk into the field, he has no rights. Ela b'shas atzos haPeiris. Only when take out the Peiris, that's when he could go into the field. And v'yezl balasoda lishtamish bo b'chefse. Even while he has the Peiris, he sold him the Peiris of the field. But the Bala Soda can be mishtamish in the field, kechefze. Aval HaMecher Soda LePeiriseh, someone that sells a Soda LePeiriseh, Ein Bala Soda Yochel Yikonis Ba'el Midas LeKech. The Lekech has the rights to this field, but only LePeiriseh. And V'yesh LeKech Lishtamish Bo kechefze. The only thing he could take from the field is the Peiris. But on the other, the Gufa field is taken out his. But anything that the field produces is his, because Lepeil, he has a kinyan in the field Lepeiriseh. That's this. So we have a case of a person sells gufa. So we had a case where a person sells the gufa karka lizman kosov. We have a case where a person sells the karka Lepeiriseh, and then we have a person that sells the peiris. Ma hefesh yesh ben hakoina soda zu Lepeiriseh ubein hasoicher soda mechaveri. We have another case where a person rents a field. So l'chori, renting a field means also he's going to get the peiris. So we say no. Kena soda Lepeiriseh. Person's kena soda Lepeiriseh. Yesh lo lenota ilazora kol man sheyirtzei leivira. He could do whatever he wants as far as the peiris is concerned. He could plant it. He could sow. He could leave it empty. But hasecher enichen. Secher, there's hagbolas what he could do. K'mei is bar being schiras. And that's the number one. And also, if you only rented, you don't have a right to sublet it. Avalakena, someone that owns the peiris, the field, the Peiriseh, is makna lacherim kol mashekana. So a person that owns a field, the Peiriseh, could be makna lacherim kol mashekana. So we're learning Bekitzer that there's different madregas in owning something. You know, when a person is makna, Peiris sodazu, there's no akna, because that's a davar shlei boleil. So you could be makna the gufa karka, that's a regular hakra. You could even be makna the karka. You could be makna a karka lizman kosov. So the person mamish owns the karka, but there's a limitation in time of how much how long you're going to have this kinyan. And then you could be makna a soda lepeiriseh, which means you have a kinyan of the soda, but the gather of the kinyan is only lepeiriseh. And then you have a metzias of being makna peiris of the soda. So the Rambam discusses the chiluk between makna peiris of the soda as opposed to soda lepeiriseh. When a person is makna the peiris of a soda, he only gets the peiris. Masha'enkin soda lepeiriseh, he has a schus in the soda lepeiriseh. He has a schus in the soda lepeiriseh. As far as Lamashal, he's the one that the person that was makna in the Sodal Pirsas, they asked him Rishus to go into the field and use the field. And then there's another case called a Seicher. A Seicher has a right to use the field. It's not like he's just taking the payers. A Seicher is more than someone that just has, knows, you have someone that's makna Sodal Pirsas, that's a higher madrega, then a Seicher, and then you have someone that's a Seicher, and then you have a less madrega, which is someone that just has payers Sodazu. So you have someone that owns a field, then you have someone that owns a field Lizman, then you have someone that you were makna soda liperisa, and then you were makna, then you were maskira soda, and then there's a mitzvah of being makna the payers soda zu, in the case where the payers you were actually kind of, for example, that the payers started already growing. Halacha tes hamoicher payers shevach u payers kaveres lechaveri kona. Now we learned that when a person sells payers, shalei bola elam, he sells payers dekel or payers of a soda. So it's not kaina because ain't no the makna dover shlei bola elam. When are you kaina? When you sell the dekel liperesav or the karka liperesav, because over there that's boelam. So therefore you can be kaina. Now over here you're selling the payers shevach or payers kaveres. So it's a dover shlei bola elam. But nevertheless the din is that it's kind of why. We don't consider a meichel dover shlei boelam. Why? Because even though he said the word payers shevach and payers kaveres, we don't understand that it means he's only selling the yonim sheyivoldu, a dvash sheyavi lekaveres. But we understand it to mean elahu meicher shevach leperesav a kaveres ledivsha. And the beer is because lepeil, when a person has a piece of karka, the karka is choshev, an ilan is choshev. So if he said he's only selling the peiros ilans, he's selling the peiros ilan. He's not selling the ilan leperesav. Masha'enkin a shevach, the whole shivas of the shevach is only for the peiros of the shevach. Now that is it for a kaveris, is for the dvash of the kaveris. So memela, when a person says I'm selling you the peiros of the shevach, or I'm selling you the peiros of this kaveris, we understand that it also means that since the whole kaveris is only leperesav, and since the whole shevach is only leperesav, so that includes that he's basically selling the shevach and the kaveris leperesav. Because since its whole shivas is only peresav, so when he says I'm selling you the payers of it, basically he's selling the payers of it, and he's selling also the item which kolin yoni is only the payers. Now the shaila is be'emes, the payers don't come from the shevach. The payers don't really come from the shevach, and the payers don't really come from the gaveres. The payers are developed in the shevach, or the yonim are developed in the shevach, and the dvash is developed in the kaveres, but they're not really payers of the kaveres. So over here, so therefore you have to learn pshat, that it's not the pshat, I'm really selling you the shevach leperesav, because the payers don't come from the shevach. It means like I'm giving you the shevach, or really the Rambam is going to say it's like I'm renting you the shevach, and the renting of the shevach is you're going to use the shevach in order to have the payers. And that's also a proper sale, because renting is also a proper sale. But it's not al derech where you makna a dekel leperesav. Well, here the Rambam is comparing it to Seicher, which we learned before, is there's a difference between Seicher and Makna Dekel Peresav. So the Ram says over here, Lehu Moicher Shevach Leperesav, a Kaveres Ledivsha, Shaharei, who Keseicher Amas Hamayim Lechaver. If a person rents out a channel of water to someone, so the din is Shehu Nana B'chol Mashiyotzid Ba. He could also be Nana anything that he's going to be tzod in this channel of water, fish that are going to come into this channel of water as a result of the fact that he has it. Or not as a result, but he'll be able to take those fish. So even though those fish are not really coming from the channel of water, but that's part of the sale. The sale is that I'm being makna you, or I'm being masker you, this channel of water, and you can have the ishtamshus of this channel of water also for things that aren't produced by the channel of water. Is kach ze hikne shevach ze leperesav. This person was hikne shevach ze leperesav. We understand that it's a Mechirah Peresav, but it's not mamish like a Mechirah Peresav, because as we learned that a Mechirah Peresav has a kinyan in the Gufa Ilah. Mashenkan over here, you don't really have a kinyan in the Gufa Shevach. V'din kulam kidin aseicher bayis mechaverik mishamarnu. So it knows just like when a person is seicher the amas hamayim, so he's able to get the fish which come into the amas hamayim. So in the same way, when he, so to speak, seicher the Shevach, even though he didn't say clearly he's being seicher the shevach, he only said that he's selling him the payers of the shevach. But we interpreted that it means that he's being seicher the shevach or being seicher the kaveres.
שהונן בכל הנויז, כמי שאמרנו שהונן בכל הנויז שיש בי, וכן כל כי עץ בזה. So the din is that a person, when he's moicher, paid a shevach or paid his kaveres lechaveri, so then he's koine, and the word is that it's algeder, he's koine, the shevach leperesov, or the kaveres leperesov, and it's not mamish like a dekel leperesov, but it's more like a soicher amas hamayim. Halacha yud. Habeitzim vo efrechem atzmo sheyesh b'shevach, is late kona isim bala shevach calls man shli porcho. This is a din has nothing to do with selling. The beitzim and the efrechem, which is in a shevach, there's the yoinim and the shevach, and they have beitzim and efrechem. So the din is that those beitzim and efrechem don't belong to the bala shevach. Why? V'gdav gzer gzeres chachomitz a din derabanan u'mishum lisika cheim alabanan. Because the din is you're not allowed to take aim alabanan, but be'emes you're allowed to take the bonim from the aim. In other words, you're not allowed to take the aim alabanan. While the aim is on the bottom, you're not allowed to take her away. But on the other end, if the aim is on the bottom, you can take the bottom away. So be'emes, there's no problem of taking the freichim and the beitzim which are in the shevach. But Chazal made exer because if you're going to take the beitzim and the freichim from the shevach, so you may also end up taking the aim alabonim as well. So therefore, they made exer you shouldn't take the beitzim the freichim and it shouldn't be yours. The ficha charetzel lahaknas efrechem with beitzim eil lechaveri. Someone that wants to be makna these beitzim and efrechem to someone else, so the peli doesn't own it because Chazal instituted that it shouldn't be his, even though it's in his chotzer, but it shouldn't be his. Is lefichach in order for him to be able to be koined is mitapeach ala shevach. He moves the shevach, and therefore sheyifrucha imoy. So then the mothers go off the shevach, and at that point in time, so there's no longer a din of lisikach eim alabanim, and once there's no din of lisikach eim alabanim, there's also no din derabanim that you're not allowed to take the frechem and the beitzim v'yigbu me'alaretz v'acharkach. Once they're yigbu me'alaretz is yakna esim lechaveri bekinyan, then he could go ahead and be makna lechaveri bekinyan oyal gabi karka ibish ardvarim shametaltel and niknebem. So if a person wants to sell nochmo, if a person wants to sell the frechem and the beitzim which are in his shevach, so before he does this thing of moving it and causing the imois to fly up, so he's not really koina these efreichem abeitzim. He doesn't really have a right to take him. So midrabon he's not koinit, and therefore he can be maknit. But if he goes ahead and picks up those causes that the imois should fly up, so that at that point in time he could be koina the efreichem abeitzim, and therefore at that point in time he can be maknit either with a kinyan sudar or agav karka, whatever way he can be makna karka. Obviously, we're talking about being makna metaltlin. Obviously, we're talking about being makna metaltlin without a kinyan meshicha, and kesef doesn't work to be kinyan metaltlin. So it has to be a kinyan that works. So he gives an example: either a kinyan sudar or a kinyan of kinyan agav. Halacha yudalef. Halikeach peidah shevach mechaver. A person, as we said in the halacha test, you could buy peidah shevach mechaver. And when a person make a peidah shevach, so the kinyan is chal, it's not considered a davar shlei boleilam, but there's hagbalas what the buyer gets. This is eini yochel litel kol hagizolis sheyevolde b'miato. He can't go ahead and start taking all the yoinim that'll be yevoldu in this from then onwards. They'll noiler, it should be his. Why? Because if a person's going to, it's understood that that's not the havana of the sale, because he didn't mean to sell the payers of the shevach, and through that the whole shevach will become this battle. He means to say that he has a shevach, he has a running shevach, and that shevach is producing yoinim, and Mamela, he wants to sell those yoinim. He wants to sell those yoinim, but he doesn't want to sell the yoinim ba'ifun kazed, that by you taking away the yoinim, so the whole shevach is going to be potl. So Mamela, so it has to be bavarant that you're not going to take away enough yoinim to cause the whole shevach to fall apart. So this says the Seder. What's the Seder? You shouldn't, any yochel little kola gezolas, you can't take all the gezolas, all the yoinim, she involved the bemiata, but mois berches, because that'll cause that the mothers will go away, and nimtze shehichrev kola shevach, and that was zicher, not the kavon of the sale. Ella manichen mehen, you have to leave over some of the gezolas that are going to be born, kidei liyashiv al hashevach, in order that the shevach should be an established shevach, it should be an established. It shouldn't. The imor shouldn't run away. Now, kama minich, how much do you leave over? Zazeh. Imhoyu be imois ubonis beis mechiras haperes. So there was a pair. There was a pair of the mothers. There was the zachar and the keva, which were the mothers and the father of these yoinim. And then there was also a pair of of offspring of these yoinim. So you had 4 yoinim. You had the mois, a pair of imois, and a pair of bonis. Be'ez mechiras aperes. So is azoy. Meniach brecher rishena sheyelido himois. Now, even those imois have more offspring, so that brecher rishena knows the first pair that the yoinim will have, so that you also have to leave. And kadeshi yitzlavso haimois im abrecher rishena v'mabon sheimoim. So in order for the imois to remain, so for its company, it has to have company. 2 pairs, which means the original pair that was there when he bought it, and also the new pair that came after he bought it. So again, there was the original pair, the imois, and then there were the bonis, the original. So there was original imois, and then there were original bonis, and now from the imois they became another brecha, another pair. So now the imois have 2 pairs to be with, and also now the bonis, which were there originally. So there you have to also miniach mimashi yilido habonis shtei breches, another 2 pairs. So now the bonis will also have 2 pairs to be with. So the imois have the 2 pairs. That's the original bonis plus the new pair that the imois had. And now the bonis also have 2 pairs, which is the 2 breches, which 2 pairs which the bonis were moiled. So now altogether we have 8 pairs. We have the imois, and we have 2 pairs that the imois had. So that's already 3, and another 3 pairs. And now we have, we have 5 pairs. So in other words, we have the imois, and then we have the first set of breches, and then we have that the imois have another set, and then the breches have another 2 sets. So altogether you leave 5. The original imois, the original bonis, another pair that came from the original imois, and another 2 pairs that came from the original bonis. And now, anything that's born after the 2 breches, the 2 pairs that came from the bonis, and also and the first pair that came from the imois, which is harei l'shalei. So basically, there are 5 pairs: the imois, the bonis, the 1 pair, extra pair of the imois, and another 2 pairs of the bonis. And that's what you leave over make sure that those 5 pairs should remain in the shevach. And then anything else that would be born, aside from the imois, aside from the bonis, aside from the bonis, all of these, everything else that's there, you're able to take, because lepel, the shevach is an established shevach. Halacha Yud Gimel. Halikeach Peres Kaveres Mechaveri. A person buys. So we said before, you can buy Peres Kaveres, the Peres of a beehive. So what do you take? So Noitel Shloishin Nechilim Zachar Zeh. So Vaisas, you have the bees in the beehive, and those bees produce other bees every 9 days. They produce a set of bees. Bees from original bees come more bees. So the first 3 groups that come from the original bees that were there, those 3 groups of bees have to remain in the beehive. In other words, in order for the beehive to be able to keep producing honey. Once you have another 3 groups of bees that came from the original bees, and now there's more bees being produced, is netel nechil. So you take 1 group, uminiach nechil, and you leave over a group for the original owner, in order that the kaveres should be an established kaveres. In other words, this kaveres still really belongs to the original owner. It's just that this person that was bought the payers of the kaveres has a right to the payers of the kaveres, but not in a way that he's going to be able to destroy the whole kaveres. So we say a person has a kaveres, again a beehive, and those beehives have bees. So the first 3 groups, the chilim of bees that come from the original bees in the beehive, so that you leave, and then you start taking alternate ones. In other words, you take the 4th, and you leave the 5th, and al derezeh you go further. Vices, it's normally for bees to have like 8 or 9 sets of bees that come from 1 bee originally. In other words, 1 bee could have 9 sets of nechilim. Halacha Yudalit. Halikeach chalaz dvash mechaveri. So you have a beehive, and in that beehive you have the wax, and in the wax there's the honey. So you went ahead and bought the honey, the honeycomb mechaveri. So now in this beehive there's many honeycombs. Now the question is, you have to leave some honey in order for the bees to want to be there. Is maniach b'kaver shtei chalos. So you have to leave 2 honeycombs in the beehive. Because in order for the bees not to leave. In other words, if you're going to take away all the wax and honey that's in the beehives, so then the bees aren't going to come back to the beehive. So the whole beehive will become always beehive. So Mel, you're buying the produce of the beehive. You're buying the dvash which this beehive produces, but you can't take enough dvash that the beehive is going to stop producing dvash. So therefore, you have to leave 2 chales dvash in the beehive in order for the beehive to continue functioning. Halacha tezvov, halikeach zeisim mechaveri lokos. He takes an olive tree with the intention of cutting the olive tree. He's going to cut this olive tree. So the question is, but he's cutting the olive tree, but with the intent that the original owner of the olive tree will have an olive tree grow again. He doesn't want to cut it. He hopes that this olive tree is going to come back and grow again. So the question is, how far close to the ground could he cut this olive tree? So the din is, maniach ho'ilon somich la'aretz. He has to leave from the tree near the earth, near the ground, shtei groipios, 2 sets of branches. In other words, there's branches coming out of the tree. So there's the branches which come down very low in the tree, and then there are the branches which go above it, and above those 2 layers of branches, that's where you could cut off the olive tree if you made up to buy an olive tree. You know, you're buying the olive tree, but it's clear that you're not buying the olive tree al manas. You want the wood of the olive tree, but you're not buying it al manas that the olive tree is going to get ruined. The original owner wants to still be left with some type of an olive tree, but he's giving a good part away for wood. So so that says then you leave near the ground 2 sets of branches. Now lokach psula shikma. Shikma is generally like a wild date tree, but al kopon psula shikma means a shikma tree which was never cut. That's pshat psula shikma. It's a shikma tree that was never cut. So this is the first time it's being cut. So the din is magbia shleisha tvachim v'kaitzes. In other words, you have to be 3 tvachim above the ground, and over there you could cut off this shikma tree, this psula shikma, which was never cut. Now sadan shel shikma, you already have a shikma tree which was once cut, and now you have like the trunk of this shikma tree, which might have started growing again, and now you want to cut it off after it grew a second time. So that's shnei tvachim. You don't have to leave 3 tvachim next to the ground. All you have to do is leave 2 tvachim next to the ground. Ubishari lana. So we spoke about a zeisim. We spoke about zeisim. That zeisim has to be shtei graphias. We spoke about a psulas hashikma, and we also spoke about a sadn shel shikma. What about other trees? Ubishar ilanis is tefach v'koitzes. All you have to do is leave a tefach next to the ground. You're buying a tree, you leave a tefach next to the ground, and v'koitzes, and then you can cut off the rest that's on top of it. Now, bekanim ubikvanim, if you want to cut reeds, kanim are reeds, or bikvanim are vines, is min hapkak ulamayla. Pkak is like the nut. Whereas when you have like vines growing, well, there is a reeds growing, so they grow and there's nuts. And then from the nut, like top, there's a nut, and then from the nut grows more. So you have to leave over what's from the ground until the first nut, and then on top of the nut you could cut. You have to leave over the first growth that's from the ground, and also the nut which is on the reed or on the vine, that you have to leave over, and you can only cut on top of that pekak. Now that's b'kolum of arazim. If you're talking about a date tree, a palm tree, or an erez or a cedar tree, so over here you could chayfer a misharish, you could actually uproot the tree, even take out its roots. Why? The fish ain't gizi machlev. If you're going to cut it, it's never going to regrow again. These trees don't regrow. So the other trees, a date tree, a olive tree, other trees regrow. So therefore, even if you're going to cut it, they're going to regrow. So there's a din of how far down you could cut it. Masha'inkin, when we're dealing with a palm tree, now that is a cedar tree, so they don't regrow. So if you bought the rights to cut it, so you could cut it and take out the roots, because anyways, it's not going to regrow.